The day was unusually somber, with heavy clouds gathering in the sky, as though the heavens themselves had decided to mourn. A gentle breeze stirred the air, carrying with it the scent of impending rain. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. In the quiet corner of a small town, nestled between tall trees and lush greenery, stood a modest house. It wasn't grand or remarkable in any way, but it had an air of warmth and comfort, as if it had seen many years of laughter, love, and life. Inside, the atmosphere was different. It was heavy, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were holding back a flood of emotions. In the center of the living room sat an old woman, her face lined with the years she had lived, her hands trembling slightly as they rested on her lap. Her eyes, however, were what drew attention. They were wet, glistening with unshed tears, reflecting a deep well of sorrow that words could never fully capture. She had cried so much that her tears seemed to have run dry, leaving only the raw emotion that remained etched on her face. Across from her, a young man sat quietly, his hands clasped together as he stared at the floor. He was her grandson, and the bond they shared was one of the deepest connections either had known. He had come to visit her often, especially in recent times, as her health began to decline. But today, he felt a different kind of weight pressing down on him, one that he couldn't quite put into words. His grandmother's eyes were wet, not just with the sadness of the present, but with memories that spanned decades. She had lived through wars, losses, and joys that seemed unimaginable to him. And now, in her final days, those memories were all she had left. The young man struggled with the knowledge that he could do nothing to ease her pain. His heart ached with the helplessness of watching someone he loved fade away. Little by little, the old woman finally broke the silence, her voice soft but steady. "It's strange," she said, her gaze distant, as if she were looking at something far away. "When you're young, you think that you'll remember everything, every face, every moment of joy. But as time goes on, the details start to blur. And yet, the emotions stay with you, as clear as ever." The young man looked up, meeting her gaze. Her words struck a chord deep within him. He had always believed that memories were what mattered most, that they were the things that defined a life well lived. But as he watched his grandmother struggle to recall even the simplest of details, he began to question that belief. "Do you remember Grandpa?" he asked quietly, knowing the answer but needing to hear it anyway. A faint smile touched her lips, and she nodded. "Oh, yes, I remember him. He was a good man. A kind man. We had our share of struggles, but we faced them together." She paused, her eyes growing distant once more. "But you know, it's not the big moments that stand out. It's the little things, the way he used to hold my hand when we walked, or the sound of his laughter when he told a joke." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, it seemed as though she might start crying again. But she didn't. Instead, she closed her eyes, as if she could still hear his laughter, still feel his hand in hers. The young man felt a lump in his throat, his own eyes growing wet with unshed tears. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her that everything would be okay, but the words wouldn't come. All he could do was sit there, sharing in her grief, feeling the weight of their shared memories pressing down on them both. The silence between them was thick with unspoken emotions, each of them lost in their thoughts, yet somehow connected by the bond of their shared history. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, tapping softly against the window. The sound was gentle, almost soothing, as if nature